Hello, friends. Dawn Jenyce and Wendy Badwin Hargett are here again today for Lightweavings podcast. And this is where we ask that question, what has dimmed your light? And are you ready to do something about it? We're going to talk about subjects that may make some uncomfortable, but that is where we grow, is going right through that discomfort. So here we are again today, Wendy.
Hello, Dawn. I'm so excited for today's conversation. We don't know where it's going to go, and we're just open and we're going to play and have fun.
I love it. And happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Yes.
Valentine's Day for us, right? It's all about that female love. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Girlfriend power, girlfriend love.
Absolutely. And self-love, another very important topic. And one of the things that came up when we were talking earlier, I'd love to keep talking about if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
And it is the form of self-love about letting go of the fear that comes with being truly authentic. And I know that I've struggled with that all my life. I am 62 years old. And I'm finally realizing it's time to let that go. But it is for me, it must have stemmed from my childhood, that fear of not being safe when I am being my entire whole self.
Yeah, I love this subject. It's something that pretty much everybody, I'll say, has struggled with, whether they realize it or not. And I want to commend you for having that awareness. I used to struggle with that too. Maybe it was the same for you or listeners. I remember being a little girl and I was always getting into trouble for being fidgety. I would get in trouble for being too loud, for laughing too much, or having too much energy, or just whatever it was. It was not okay, and that is a form of not being safe with who you are. I mean, is that like what you're talking about?
Yeah, being too much, right?
Yes.
Too much of anything.
Right.
Bring it on. Be too much. Be as big and bright as you possibly can be. But yes, I do believe that a lot of, especially women, from our era, and women even today, are taught that or told that they are too much of whatever that is.
Yeah.
And with me, I'm too, well, my husband says that I analyze too much. And I think that's my superpower. Like, I can break things down and figure things out. I mean, that's a gift, isn't it? And I should celebrate.
Yes. Don't you ever squash yourself for doing that. Yes, I love that about you. And that skill, you actually bring that to our podcast YouTube channel, because you are so good at what I say, and you analyze it and like you repackage it and you put it in an easy to understand, succinct way. And yes, that is an absolute superpower. I kind of laugh because one of my superpowers is asking a lot of questions. I drive my kids absolutely crazy. And, my husband, he's learned that I'm just going to ask questions. And so they've all learned to start asking questions. They're like, okay, Mom, I asked this question because I knew you were going to ask me. Or so, yeah,
That's great. You're retraining them.
Yes. Yeah. And, and for my line of work, the healing is within asking the right questions. And that's what helps to open people up. You've been on the other end of that, of me asking you lots of questions.
Yes. And they're welcome. The questions are welcome. And, it kind of puts me on a different path, a different way of thinking when you ask certain questions. And that's good for me. That's good for my neural pathways to start. I create new neural pathways by thinking along a different road. And so, your superpower is asking questions, and mine is analyzing. And I also think that's how we learn individually. So that's how I learn, is by breaking things down into, more simple pieces for my brain to absorb, and then repackaging them how I heard it. And that's how I learn. Like that's how I take notes. I've always learned that way. And yours is by asking questions. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful skill. How else
Mm-hmm.
are we going to learn? Yeah.
Right, right. So everybody gets to acknowledge and explore what their superpower is and just really celebrate that. A lot of people don't even know what their superpower is. And I love what you brought up about not feeling safe because that is so important. Feeling safe is one of the pillars as a human for our health. It's for when you're feeling safe because when you're squashing yourself, that you're setting the foundation for disease, emotional disease, physical disease down the road because you're not expressing who you are. It also affects your business if you're a business owner, or even your work if you work for somebody else. Because if you're afraid to be your authentic self, yeah, all that suppression, it takes a toll on you. At some point, something's got to give. And when you're
Yeah.
in that fear state, my goodness, the damage that it's doing to you is, it's heartbreaking when you realize what's happening to you.
Yeah, honestly, recently I've had those feelings. And the word that came to me was distress. I felt
Mm-hmm.
distress and really, a new buzzword is shook. Like, my body isn't liking the feeling of not feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
It affects my digestive system. I
Mm-hmm.
get a gut ache, which is your second brain. So that's
Right?
telling you something.
Right.
Yes. All of my joints hurt. I feel stiff. I don't sleep well. My voice starts shaking and getting shaky, and that's fear of truth, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, about your voice and everything. Because your voice right there with your throat chakra, that gets blocked. Um, I when I first got into the holistic healing realm as a client, excuse me, I had a lump on my thyroid. And it was about the size of my little finger, and it looked like I had swallowed like a mini carrot, and it got lodged sideways. And one of the first things that I learned was opening up all this suppression, all this, lots of rage and hate and everything like that. But it was also all this, the inability growing up to not be my authentic self, to not speak my voice. And when you're afraid to be who you are, you silence your voice. And we women, especially, I know there were some men too who have had their voices suppressed, but women as a society, as a species, we have been silenced for, thousands of years. And it's time that we stop being afraid of who we are, because who we really are very powerful beings of light and love. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say those that want us to squash ourselves, they see who we really are. And on a subconscious level, are actually afraid of who we are.
Oh, for sure. I can feel the fear
Mm.
coming off of people, and it comes across as just fearful rhetoric, nastiness,
Mhm.
snide remarks,
Mm.
name calling.
Mhm.
If a woman speaks her truth, more than others are comfortable with, she's called a big mouth. Um, there's all kinds of words that they use for women.
A bitch.
Um, oh yeah, there's a good one.
Yeah, we're bitches. If we speak our voice and stand up for ourselves, we're bitches. Mhm.
Wow. And I know growing up in the 60s, it was a thing is children are to be seen and not heard. And that
Mhm.
was kind of the all, you know.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't our household, you know,
Yeah.
it's just there was 5 of us, and family members said we were lined up on the sofa when people came to visit like little soldiers, and we said nothing, and we just sat there quietly
Mm-hmm.
because that was the rule, you know. You don't want to make any noise or make a mess or, you know, all
Mm-hmm.
those things. And wow, children have to be children. They have to speak their voice. That's how they learn. That's how they learn, ask
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I have 4 grandchildren. 3 of them are girls. And my youngest, who is 4 years old, is such a spitfire. I was having a conversation with my dad about this the other day because he was talking about a neighbor girl who's a little bit older than my granddaughter. My youngest is, and his granddaughter is 4. The other girl, I think she's like 7, 8, something like that. Uh, but she's a little spitfire, which is fantastic. So the dad had come over sharing with my dad how his daughter speaks her voice, is not afraid to stand up and say, whatever her opinion is. And I said, yes. I said, it's just like my little granddaughter who is not afraid to let you know if she's happy, unhappy, whatever. And I said, this is how it's supposed to be. Of course, as a parent, you want to lovingly guide your child so they're not being disrespectful, which is different than shutting them up. Very big difference. And to me, it's so encouraging and exciting to see these little children who are fearless and willing to own who they are. And God bless them. Gotta protect those little ones from the world. Hopefully, the harshness of the world doesn't dim their light. I know, like my granddaughter my daughter and son-in-law are amazing parents. They give all 3 of their girls a voice, and I did my best to give my children a voice as well. But yeah, those of us who were not raised like that, we get to unpack and undo all of the crap, that we took on, all the restrictions and all the fears. And
I have a lot of
yeah.
work to do yet on that. I've been unpacking for years, you know, one box at a time. But I feel like we're coming to the end
Mm-hmm.
quickly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody is uncomfortable with our boldness in whatever area that is, maybe it's woo, maybe it's, the types of things that we talk about here on this podcast. They're uncomfortable with spirituality, finding your voice, talking about chakras, all the woo things that we talk about here. It's okay to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to release
Yes.
people that are uncomfortable. If they're uncomfortable, let them walk away. Don't change so that you fit, because then you're not being authentic. Then the diseases start to happen, the uncomfortable things. And marriages happen that probably shouldn't, things like that.
Right.
And it's okay to have faith in the universe that the right people will show up in droves. You will
Yes.
have community, you will have a tribe, you will have plenty of friends, the right soulmate, the right, romantic partner on Valentine's Day. Speaking of the right partner, but they will show up for you if that's what's meant to happen in your life.
Yes,
But
absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. Beautifully said. Yeah, one of the things that came to mind when you were talking about, being just talking about all these things that are uncomfortable, because we do talk about things that are uncomfortable to, a lot of the population. There was a time that our conversations would have been really uncomfortable for me, and I would not have subscribed and listen in on these things. And so, by us being our authentic self, for anyone that does listen, it feels uncomfortable, it's okay, because I see it as planting seeds. And, people can't say that they weren't told, they can't say that they weren't introduced to something. And I wish that I had it in my memory there's a process that people go through when they first hear about something that's so new. It's like it's natural to reject it. Oh no, that can't be possible. And then when we go through transitional stages until we're like, oh, now I get it. Now I see it. And so, yes. So for those that are uncomfortable with this, that's okay. It may stay that way. It may be like me, or I circle back around later, go, oh my God, this
Stick
is
around.
so,
Stick around. We'll be here. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
be here. Come on
exactly.
back.
Exactly. We'll be here. Yes. Yeah.
Well, anything in our world, that's things just evolve, right?
Yeah.
Technology, innovation.
Mhm.
At first, Columbus proved that the world was round.
Mhm.
People didn't believe that
Right.
for however long. And the rejection of things that are real happens all the time.
Mhm.
It happens all the time. But if it wasn't for those innovators and those brave souls out there that
Mhm.
believed, and then others started coming, that we would not be evolving. We would not be able to see podcasts on YouTube right
Right.
now
Right.
for that. So, yeah, if something seems foreign, uncomfortable, that's normal.
Mhm.
That's the part of your brain that is afraid of change,
Mhm.
because if you change, you might die. It's that basic.
Right.
Um, um, look at the little seeds that are being planted. Watch them grow. Come back and get more information, or go to different sources to confirm it. There's a lot of truths out there that we're still discovering to this day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know that the Chinese could send a huge balloon that's the size of 3 football fields across overseas to watch us. Did you know that? I didn't know
No,
that.
no, I did not. And it's one of those things that it'd be easy to say, oh no, that's not possible until you actually see it, witness it. Bless all those who came before us, that had the courage to be who they were. They are a good leader, a good example for us. All those brave souls, they got so much ridicule for speaking their truth and being fearless in who they are. And we get to, if somebody ridicules us for being who we are, now that we're adults, we're not children anymore. We're not vulnerable children anymore. We do get to go in and heal that inner child and be there for that inner child. And just knowing that they're safe, you're safe.
Yeah, it's so interesting that at this age, this time in my life, 62 years old, I'll say
Hmm.
it again because
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to make it into my brain. It still hasn't, but anyway, um, that something that I believed to protect myself when I was a very young child is keeping me from evolving and growing into um, the best version of myself right now.
Yeah.
But it's true. I'm still learning that every day. And this need for safety while being my authentic self is real for me. It's real for
Hmm.
me. And I want to shout out to Bob and Shauna. If you hear this podcast, thank you for helping me realize that in the last few weeks. Thank you. Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
by the way, they're amazing relationship coaches that I've been working with. They're great
Ah,
people. Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, you brought up a very important topic. We are, no matter how old we are, I'm 59 on the downhill slide to 60. We're all run by our inner child. And most of us have a very wounded inner child. And it doesn't take much to wound a child, and then you carry that throughout your adult life. And it's like that wounded inner child is waiting for you to go back and to bring it that sense of safety, that sense of love, that sense of connection. Connection is your word and theme for February. They're longing for that connection. And lot of research shows, of course, this stuff can start anywhere. We brought this up before and it bears repeating. Could be ancestral, past life in the womb, but that connection and that safety and feeling secure in who you are is really gets ingrained in you within your first year to 2 years of life, with that bonding and that attachment. And I look at my grandson, who is just over a year old, and he is an amazing example of someone who is very secure and confident in who he is as a baby. And I commend my son and my daughter-in-law. I tell them often, you guys are doing an amazing job, because he feels very comfortable in who he is. He feels comfortable in this big world. And, they're always going out and exploring things. And so I get to see videos and pictures. And when I see him in real life, it's like, this is an amazingly secure child. And I will tell you this is a little woo-woo. Before my grandson was born, I checked in and I said, is there anything that the soul of, his name is Virgil, is there anything that the soul of Virgil would be willing to tell me? And he told me, I know what I'm doing.
Wow.
And I see that in him.
It is
Yeah.
amazing how we see that in babies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can. Yeah, with my son Jacob, I looked into his eyes when he was a brand new newborn, and I knew that he was had a knowing about him. Like he knew we were connected, like we knew each other, we were very comfortable with each other. And when my grandson Jack was born, who Jack is 6 now, he'll be 7 in June. When he finally opened his eyes and he could focus, I just saw pure kindness. Pure kindness. And we can see those qualities, can't we?
Yes, we can.
In their eyes. We can feel it. We can see it if we pay attention to it. And that is exactly who Jack is. He's a very kind soul. 6.5-year-old little boy. And he's very kind, So yeah, that's wonderful. So that they're comfortable with who they are.
Yeah.
And they're not holding back that authentic self. I'm grateful for that, for those 2 little boys that we're talking about, Virgil and Jack, right now, because they're in that generation where parents are starting to realize to allow them to be their authentic self and be okay with that. They're not feeling stifled by strict rules. And some rules are, of course, are there for their safety, but the strict rules of not being a child and not being authentic are a thing of the past, I believe. I hope so anyway.
I definitely hope that we are shifting more into that. Also, as a parent, I do have to say, without letting your kid be a brat, we don't need any more bratty, narcissistic people in the world. But yeah, I really, you're seeing it, I'm seeing it, and the overall feeling that I get, when you check in with the energy of, our earth, we are definitely shifting, and it's exciting and it's hopeful for a new way of being further down the road, as these children evolve and step into their power decades sooner than us,
Yeah, whatever the millennials are doing with their children, good job. You guys are doing a great job, because we are seeing that. And there is, last year my word was hope. And so you just brought up the word hope for a new generation of awakening. And that's what's happening. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my awakening, even at this stage in life. And by the way, if you're going to be 60 this year, welcome to sexagenarian
Ooh,
age.
I like that.
Love that word. My friend Jan taught me that when I was entering into the 60s, which was 2020, by the way. I turned 60. Ooh, that was quite the celebration. Yeah. Not, but anyway. Yeah, it's doesn't matter when you awaken to your authentic self, as long as you do. The earlier the better, though. So we're hoping that our message is getting out there to all of you that are struggling with this right now, that are maybe on the threshold of seeing that there is a fear of being authentic. There is a fear of losing people. But like I said before, just let them go. When they're ready, they'll come. They'll come back. And if they're not, well, they weren't the right people for you anyway.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. And, what comes to mind is one of the spiritual teachers that I like to follow is Matt Kahn. And he's all over YouTube sensation. He does all these channelings, and he comes from a family that is not of like mind. And I've read some of his books, heard some of his stories, and I'm in awe of him because he shares stories about being with his family that, of course, hasn't completely embraced what he does. And what he does is he blesses them and sends them love.
Mhm. And that is the key, that kindness and that love.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it's Valentine's Day. That's what
Mm-hmm.
it's all about. It is the sweetness of that energy that we're putting out into the world,
Mm-hmm.
as we release people. Because if we don't release, maybe they can't find their way to their authentic self. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes, I do.
maybe if we're hanging on to people, or we are dimming our light to make them more comfortable, maybe it's hurting them,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't want to do that. We want everybody to be as happy as possible. God knows our world needs happiness right now.
Yeah, yeah, the truth right there all over. What do you call it? Mic drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, spot on. And I had a conversation with someone before we got on this today, and we actually talked about relationships briefly. And she told me something that I didn't know, but she said that it's actually very common for people to break up around Valentine's Day. And
Mhm.
wow, that's kind of like, that's a loaded, a loaded gun there, it's like, yeah, yeah. I just thought that was really interesting, letting those people go. And what an act of self-love, if you can't do it some other time. I mean, that's what a beautiful day to have self-love. And the message that I got around that subject was, if somebody is going through that, because they're not able to be happy and be their authentic self, and they finally had enough and said, hey, I got to be me, that the life I came here to live is to, again, going back to just send love to whomever.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Thank you for bringing that up, especially today. If we're struggling, if somebody's out there struggling in their relationship, and you're afraid you're not going to be safe if you are being authentic, and your marriage is not going to be safe anymore, or your relationship is probably going to go a different direction, um, to give that person love and
Mm-hmm.
release them.
Mm-hmm.
Set them free to find what they're looking for. And it doesn't mean that the relationship's going to break up. It just means that it'll be much more rich if you're both being true to yourself, because
Right.
self-love is the key to true love between two beings. You have to love yourself truly and fully and be grounded in who you truly are
Mm-hmm.
in order to have the most fulfilling relationships that you can. And I'm speaking to myself as well as everybody else out there. I'm certainly still learning, still learning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautifully said. Yeah, it starts with self, centered in self, self-love. Yeah, love
Yeah.
it.
So you said something to me earlier today, when we were talking about, if we, what was the word you used? It was self-destructive, wasn't it? You said, if we stay in a relationship
Mm,
that isn't authentic, that is practicing self-destruction. Is that
um,
is that
I s-
true?
I said self-abuse.
Self-abuse,
Yeah.
self-abuse, which is
Hmm.
a word I've never really seen before, but self-abuse.
Hmm.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
there's an eye opener, isn't it?
Hmm. It was a real eye opener for me when someone brought this to my awareness. Yeah, because when you're in a relationship that is dysfunctional, it is not allowing you to be who you are, where you don't feel safe to speak your voice and to create the life that you are here to be in, and that other person is being their authentic self, in whatever form that may look like, but it's harmful to you emotionally and spiritually, possibly even physically. It's you get to have an opportunity to share how you feel with your partner. And if that partner isn't willing um, to change course so that you are a good match, at some point, if you stay in that and keep, it's like hitting Groundhog's Day, just keep, repeating the same old behavior. At some point, that is self-abuse, because it's dysfunctional. If you've tried whatever you can to bring some sort of healing, or, I don't like to use the word fix, but I can't think of another better word right now, to fix the situation. Yeah, by staying in that and continuing to be in that non-vibrational match, that vibrational discord, it is a form of self-abuse. And someone had to point that out to me. That was not something that I just had that awareness, because, for those of us that were raised in abusive situations, to us, it's normal. It's normal
Yeah.
to be in that dysfunction. It's what we're comfortable with. But once we have
Yeah.
that awareness that this is not how life is supposed to be, we are here to be beings of love and experience joy and harmony and that peace. And yeah, we get to choose, keep having more of the same shit, or get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you said a lot right there, and there's a lot to unpack. And everything was so good. Um, First of all, you had mentioned that the abuse, the self-abuse, you said is emotional, mental, and it can be physical. I can see where it is physical, because if we are in a relationship that is self-abusive, mentally, it manifests in our body.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
feel it in my body. And um, that does cause disease.
Yes.
It does. It causes disease, like horrible things like cancer,
Mm-hmm.
which is a horrible disease.
Yes.
And every part of your body. It also can cause digestive issues, which it can cause lack of sleep, which ruins everything.
Mm-hmm.
It does manifest in physical self-abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It does. We're hurting our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if
Yeah.
you want to live to be more than a sexagenarian, like I plan on being 100 years old plus, um, that self-abuse of being in a relationship that is abusive, mentally and emotionally, get out of it. Save
Yes.
your body.
Yes.
Get out. Um, Also, the awareness part that you brought up, I thought was really interesting. And you said that somebody had pointed it out to you, but I do believe that you were ready to receive that,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
let that sink in so that you could share that with me, because that's something that you shared with me today,
Mm-hmm.
that I was ready to receive, that
Mm-hmm.
awareness of being ready to hear this. And those of you that are out there now that are listening to this or watching this podcast on YouTube, if you're receiving that message, it's time for you to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
That is a thing, self-abuse, by being in a bad relationship.
Yeah. Well
Yeah.
said.
And so, what are some ways then that we can start adjusting that once we have that awareness? What are some ways that we can use the word fix that issue in our lives? How can we start moving out of that state and into a more healthy state of being in a relationship?
Great question. So many choices. I would say start with loving yourself, and I'm gonna say enough, because loving yourself can be a process. Lisa, it has been for me. It wasn't just one day I woke up, did some healing, and oh my God, I'm so in love with myself. It's, it's been a process. So I will start with say, loving yourself enough that you are open to being aware of what's really going on in your surroundings, the people, whether it be a marriage or with your family or just in a committed relationship, friendships, girlfriends, sometimes girlfriends can turn on you, be some of the hardest relationships you've had. I've experienced that. So yeah, love yourself enough to wake up, take honest mental inventory, a stock of what's going on, and ask yourself, am I really happy? Am I really free to be me? Or am I being afraid to be myself in this relationship? And what am I most afraid of? What's the worst thing that could happen to me? If you do need to let go of a relationship, what is the worst thing that could happen to me? And identifying the fears can often just help to dissolve them. And if that fear, intensifies when you identify the fear, that's okay. Because you might be afraid of, I'll be financially unstable, or, whatever the fear may be. We all have our own fears. It's okay to sit and acknowledge that fear. And just because of the work that I do, I always go back to the inner child, and ask, how old was I when I first started feeling this fear? And, you don't have to have an exact age, but just ask that part of you that's holding that fear, and just give that part of you a voice, and assure that part of you that, you as an adult, this goddess warrior are there to protect this little girl or this little boy that is standing in this fear. That's where I would start. Just identifying that fear. And if you find yourself staying stuck in that fear state, you can, asking questions, my superpower. You can ask your subconscious mind, because we have all of the answers inside of us. We just got to be willing to listen, silence that inner chatter and listen and feel however communication comes to you. You can ask yourself, what do I hate or resist about, I'll use a relationship. What do I hate or resist the most about not letting go of this relationship?
Let me think about the question. What do I hate the most about not letting go? In other words, what is the worst part of this relationship, right? What is the worst part?
So just close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Let's not analyze it. Okay. So we're just going to pretend. Okay. So, because we're talking about relationships, let's just pretend that there's, some relationship that, is causing some grief, some angst. What is the worst thing, or what do I hate or resist the most about letting go of this relationship? That's better wording. What do I hate or resist the most about letting go of this?
So what bad might happen if I let go, right?
Well, it could be bad. It could be good.
Okay.
What do I hate what do I hate or resist the most about letting go of this relationship?
Well, what if it is a marriage? What if it is a marriage and then there is, the whole debacle, the legal battle, the stuff, the money, what if it's that as well as the shame? Let's just be real. That's a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And time invested. I mean, that's another thing that has come up for me in the past when I've decided to end a relationship, is all the time I invested in it, but then I found that, why would I invest more time in it?
That's a really good question. I'd like to touch on a couple points here. I love what you brought up about shame. You and I were raised in an era where divorce was shameful. And so, it's just women, especially, I've listened to so many experts in the field talk about how much shame women carry, and we don't even realize it. And ancestral shame, generational shame, whatever, however you want to call it. And that old stigma of divorce, there's still something there. I don't know why, but that subject came into my head like a couple weeks ago, and it's so true. Maybe it came up because I have been divorced. But we get to work through that shame. We get to decide, do we want to hang on to the shame? Do we want to buy into the shame? Talking about, yes, getting a divorce is messy. Been there, done that. The money, the homes, the retirement, the whole 9 yards. So what you hate or resist the most about letting go of that relationship is having to deal with these other elements, right? And so that can feel really overwhelming. It can feel really sad. There can be a grieving process because it is a death. If you move on from a marriage or a committed relationship, it is a death. And it's okay to acknowledge all of those feelings. There's no shame in how you feel. And, of course, it's natural to want to hang on because we have this fantasy, thinking how things should be. And we get to realize that that person is not the person that is in our head, the person that we've made them out to be. So we're not seeing that person as their authentic self, where they are right now in life.
Yes.
As far as the legality stuff of breaking everything down, again, that can be very overwhelming. And what someone can do, of course, if it's easier, work with a professional, if you need a lawyer, a coach, or whatever, but help to chunk that down. You've got the big picture of everything that needs to be done. And, like I said, I understand, been there, done that. But then when you break that down into smaller chunks, which means like one step, next step, the next step, the next step. So it's like you choose your starting point and you break that down into bite-sized pieces. And then it isn't as overwhelming.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fear when you look at the big, huge piece, huge event. It's
Yeah.
how am I going to survive this? Like financially,
Yes.
emotionally, but what about the people that'll no longer be in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Because, when you are, whether it's a friendship or a marriage or any kind of relationship, there's other people that are connected to that person
Yes, there
that
are.
you may not want to lose,
Right. And yeah, and it can
So
be very
that,
painful.
and it's frightening. It's frightening. Let's just be real. So you're saying then to chunk that down, just look at the steps. And then I'm sure for me, that would alleviate some of the fear. I know as an analyzer and I break things down, I love making an outline,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
big rocks and
right.
then the smaller rocks that are under the
Right.
big rocks.
Right. Perfect.
It's really calms what we call at the Health Coach Institute the critter brain. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, I see it all, and seeing it all helps us sort of see the big picture without having the fear along with it. The fear of it.
Right.
That's a great tool, Wendy. Great
Yeah,
tool.
it's kind of like the visual that just came to mind. Let's pretend there's this big monster. If you see this big monster, it's absolutely terrifying. But if you just saw the monster's toenail, you might think that's kind of funny. It's just little. You just see it in little bits. See a little strand of fur, or just break that
Or
down
maybe
into
it's a
little
friendly
pixels.
monster.
Sorry.
Yeah, maybe it's a friendly monster. Like,
It
I don't know,
might
there's some,
be. Yeah, like was it Monsters Inc? Have you watched that movie?
yeah,
Isn't that so
that's so
cute?
cute.
I mean, those are, yeah, not all monsters have to be scary. Yeah, letting go of relationships, whether it's a marriage, a committed relationship, a girlfriend relationship, as in, BFFs, uh, it hurts the heart. It's a process. Um, but if it's for your ultimate highest good, for you to be in your joy, for you to be who you are authentically, you know, it's worth going through that pain that is temporary. And that's one of the things our brain loves to do, is to tell us that the pain is forever. And it's
Right.
not. You know, how long we hold on to the pain is up to us, because there's so many tools to help us get through the pain.
Wow. This is so good. So, one of the things that I've discovered while working with some coaches, Bob and Shauna, um, is that there are four main pillars that we must have to feel good in a relationship. And there's all kinds of words to choose from. And my top four, and I've always said that respect and trust have always been, I consider, the foundation of any relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or whatever that looks like. Respect and trust. And if those aren't there, I feel like it's shattered. So respect and trust are the first two that I chose. And then the other two that I chose for right now in my life are joy and kindness, because that's very important to me right now. And I've
Yeah.
realized that over the last few years, how important joy is in my life and in
Yeah.
many other people's life. And then kindness. And that's my, my word for the year. My word for February is connection, but for the entire year of 2023, I really want to focus a lot on kindness. And you've brought that up a lot today, being Valentine's Day, and, releasing people that we are not energetically a match with kindness and love.
Yeah, because, everybody is doing the best that they know how at this time. Yeah, and I love that the four pillars. It makes me think about, in NLP, we call them your values. What are your top values? What are your top values in a relationship?
I would
And
say that's
so,
very, yeah.
yeah, so people listening can ask themselves, what are their top pillars to support an emotionally healthy relationship? You can call it the pillars, call it the values, but it's all boils down to what is the most important. And that is, I love that you brought that up, because it's very common to go into a relationship without knowing what your pillars are or your values are. And if you're not a match with your partner, it's not going to work.
No, basic values. Your basic values matter. I used to think it was, and they do matter, like your political views, how you feel about family, and how you see the world. But I believe that, like, words that I just chose, like those four words, are much more pinpointed on what your basic values are than those overall parts of life. So yeah, this has been really good, Wendy.
It has been.
I think we are onto something here, and a topic to keep discussing.
Yeah.
Are you a vibrational match with your partner or your girlfriends, or people that you work with? You may not be, and it's okay to let go.
It is, Esther Hicks, who does the channelings of Abraham, she talks about people being, when you're not a vibrational match, it's like you will get spit out. Somebody will get spit out. If you force it, if you force a relationship when you are not in a vibrational alignment, you will have so much discord and dis-ease on every level. And yeah, so like you just said, let that go. So if you're finding yourself, in turmoil, yeah, think of the vibration, because, we all know we're all vibrational beings. And so if we can even just look at it like that, how you brought it up, maybe that will help somebody to lessen the sadness or lessen the pain. We talked before about reframing, through NLP, seeing things differently. I find that very empowering to see people as a vibrational match or not. And I
Yeah.
will share this really quick. I remember with my first marriage, when my husband and I became not a vibrational match, we were always, this is something that Esther Hicks talks about in her channeling, is you zig and you zag, and you find
Mm,
yourself that you are not in the same place, physically at the same time. And that is a sign to look for. Are you finding yourself, you and your partner zigging and zagging?
wow.
Because it's kind of like
Wow,
trying
that's
to,
good.
yeah, it's kind of like bringing batteries together. You know how they resist if you, do it the wrong way, they push away. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Things spit out. Like you said,
Yes.
she said, somebody's going to get spit
Yep.
out, and you get spit out by, by breaking up, or whatever that looks like, or
Mhm.
you can get spit out by not making it in this life. Your body can stop
Yeah.
working.
Oh, that is
That disease.
so true. Oh my God, that is so true.
Mhm.
Love that you brought that up. So many people have exited this earth because they have felt trapped in relationships. They have not known
Mhm.
how to get out of relationships. And
Mhm.
how heartbreaking is that? There's
Yeah,
always a way out.
there is. And they choose to leave, or their body just stops
Mm,
functioning
mm-hmm.
because of the
Yep.
disease that comes. I mean, this is a
Yep.
serious topic
It
we're talking
is.
about here. This is serious to your health, your mental
Yeah.
health, your emotional, and your physical health.
Hmm.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, bless them with love
Yes.
and say
Thank you.
we're not a vibrational match. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the lessons learned. Yeah. Yeah. And, just one more note about that, Lisa Nichols, I love her, the big motivational speaker. I mean, I could listen to her for hours. She shared with about relationships. It's like where the real problems come is when you try to force a relationship to work that isn't supposed to work.
Yeah, somebody definitely gets spit out.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
I love that visual.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for all of your wisdom. I've learned so much talking with you about this today. And I hope those of you out there that are listening to the podcast, or that are watching our YouTube video, have gotten some nuggets out of this as well. This is Lightweavings podcast. This is where we talk about what has dimmed your light. Is it that you're not being your authentic self because you're afraid of losing people? If so, are you ready to do something about that? Um, this may make some uncomfortable, but if that does, that's a good sign you're working through some things. So
Yes.
I'm Don Lee, and this is Wendy Lee, Baldwin Hargett. We have books out there. We have journals out there. We'll link them below. We work individually as coaches in group programs and individual VIP programs. And you're going to find us here. We do this every week, unless something big comes up, but we'll be back. Don't worry.
Yes. Thank you, Dawn. Back at you. I always learn from you too. It's always such a pleasure and such an honor. And thank you to everybody who's listening. We would love to hear feedback. If you're watching on the YouTube, we'd love for you to make comments. I think that there are some podcast outlets that you can make comments. I'm not really sure, but yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And again, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to share this with
There,
everybody.
there you go. Love it.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much,
All right.
Wendy.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.